Hello and welcome to the CSN3M podcast. I'm Andrew Wade with Case Specific Nutrition. On this channel, we focus on mentoring, mindsets, and myth busting, all as they pertain to health and nutrition. Today's topic falls into the category of mentoring. It is the topic of carbohydrates. And I feel like I needed to have like a bump afterwards because of the social stigma they have around them. And that's actually part of the reason why that's what today's topic is. And I promise to do another topic down the road focusing on ketogenic eating and other focused diet types. Today is going to be a shorter podcast that is meant to help people better understand from a big picture perspective. And one of the things I want to emphasize right out of the gates, it's going to be the overarching theme of this topic today, is that carbohydrates are not one thing and carbohydrates are not bad. Okay? Those are the two main topics. Carbohydrates are not one thing and carbohydrates are not bad. And so with that, I think it's best that we first explain what carbohydrates are and what I mean when I say they are not one thing and why that is extremely important given our current social atmosphere, which is currently very anti-carbohydrate. But that statement is in itself very stupid and very misinformed and does not in itself mean what everyone thinks it means. Okay, so carbohydrate is one of our three macronutrients. It is our main energy-based macronutrient, but a macronutrient is one of the three main nutrients in our diet that actually get broken down and utilized in our energy systems and then are burned, and then that burn, so to speak, releases heat. That heat is measured in calories, which means carbohydrates are one of the three things our body burns as calories, would be a simplified way of saying that. It is the most dominant fuel source for our muscles and for our brain. Our muscles and brain use carbohydrates more than any other fuel type. Like I said, I will dig into ketogenic and ketosis another time, but in a normally properly fed state, carbohydrates are really the king there. But carbohydrates aren't just one thing. Carbohydrates, if you even look on a food label, would allude to the fact that they're not one thing, because under carbohydrate on a nutrition label, there's going to be subcategories. And within those subcategories, there is fiber, there is sugar, and then there is added sugar on the food label. But what's worth noting is that carbohydrates are much like a chain-linked fence. And so a sugar molecule is one of the chain links, and the more complex the carbohydrate, the larger the chain link fence. So added sugars, which would be things that we use to make desserts and baked goods and refined foods, tend to be individual chain links that do not have any attachment to other sugar molecules. So what that means is when your body eats it, it does not need to be broken down. It's already broken down. And so in our digestive process, there's nothing really to be done. And so it's absorbed and then used as energy. If you get more complex, you get into what are called, instead of mono and disaccharides, which are just 1 and 2 sugar molecules, you get into oligosaccharides, which has like 3 to 10 sugar molecules linked like a miniature chain link fence. And then you can get into sort of your larger saccharide-based based molecules before you get into what we'd consider the true fences, the true clusters, which would be your fibers. But even your fibers have soluble fiber, which is partly digestible and breaks down with water and makes a gel, and insoluble fiber, which does not break down with water and as a result does not digest very well in our body. And these are all subcategories of carbohydrate. And the reason this is important is because when you say you're going on a no-carb diet, you are saying that you are going to stop eating sugar, both refined and added sugars and things like fruit sugars. You're going to stop eating refined processed grains and flour-based items. And you're also going to stop eating things like oatmeal and sweet potatoes and brown rice and quinoa. And then when you also say you're going to cut carbs, it means you also plan to cut vegetables because vegetables are a carbohydrate. And that is why this is so important and so valuable. is fiber, as sort of, that we'll call it the most complex of the carbohydrates, is essential for digestion. It's utilized to regulate our digestive tract. It's useful for managing cholesterol levels and helping us optimize absorption of certain nutrients. It's extraordinarily valuable. We need both soluble and insoluble fibers to allow for proper digestion, which I'll dig into in another podcast. And then we benefit from more complex carbohydrates that give us almost like a time-released energy source. So a way to think about it, I always like to say that oatmeal is a time-released sugar source, in that when you consume oatmeal, it takes about 3 to 4 hours for that oatmeal to fully become sugar. And the reason that's so important is if you consumed a packet of sugar, so say you ate a pixie stick, which is 30 grams of sugar, that 30 grams of sugar goes through your digestive tract into your bloodstream within about 5 to 10 minutes. And all that sugar's in your bloodstream. It stimulates all sorts of hormones in the body, including insulin and dopamine and all sorts of other things that send us in a whirlwind and a tear. And then as a result, our energy levels surge. And then in many cases, our energy levels crash. It can also lead to being a stimulant for appetite. It can lead to low blood sugar, which oftentimes sets people up to need to eat again, which is why we can see that eating a diet that's high in processed, refined foods that are low in fiber and high in sugar would set us up to be hungrier, to potentially overeat, to potentially eat more frequently or eat erratically, and also have varied digestion and varied energy levels. Where eating something like a half cup of oatmeal, which also has roughly 30 grams of carbohydrate, instead of getting that 30 grams of sugar straight to your veins, you're getting the 30 grams of carbohydrate trickling into your body over the course of hours, which gives you stable blood sugar, stable energy levels, stable digestion, and as a result, a very stable feeling. And so it's very unfair to consider carbohydrates one thing and to go on a no carb diet, or to cut carbs, or to say that carbs are bad. And it's worth noting that even your most refined carbohydrates, like your pixie stick and those types of things, simpler sugar, refined sugar items, can actually have a lot of value in the body, particularly in those who are physically active and in need of immediate energy. Because once again, your brain and your muscles utilize sugar almost exclusively as their preferred energy source, which means if your body is in need of energy right then and there, they have a lot of value. The issue in our diet, particularly as Americans, is not that we include those things, it's that we predominantly have those things. And while I personally can recommend and do recommend a ketogenic diet for certain populations, certain people with certain hormonal issues, again, it's not the most common referral or recommendation, but there is a reason for its use, and I will dig into that in another day. Something to keep in mind is that most people that are jumping onto the keto diet as a form of weight loss, that is really not the reason why that diet is used. And more importantly, most people are doing it because it's overly restrictive and overly rigid, not because it's actually truly benefiting them. And what's funny is if they would have followed a slow carbohydrate diet, as I call it instead, where instead of eliminating all carbohydrates, they instead decided to prioritize only slow digesting carbohydrates, they would have had the same energy boost, they would have had the same weight loss, all of the same benefits. And like I said, let me repeat this. There are niche populations that do benefit from the ketogenic diet. I'm not disputing that, but it is by no means a majority of people. Most of us, if we stopped eating the mac and cheese by Easy Mac, the hamburger helper, and eating random cookies and snack crackers as a part of our daily diet and then skipping vegetables, if we instead focused on eating and including things like oatmeal and sweet potatoes and blueberries, to our diet, we would find that there would be improved satisfaction, improved stability of energy, and for those seeking it, also weight loss. And it's not because we eliminated all carbohydrates, it's because we upregulated the quality of our carbohydrates. And so I'm hoping that by hearing this, people can understand that we can't categorize carbohydrates as one thing. We definitely cannot criminalize them as a group. And if we better understand what they are, how they work, and why we need them, we'll be on a much better path to understanding what true health is. And for those of you out there, wondering, again, if the ketogenic diet is right for you, if you are not someone who has specific hormonal issues that I will dig into in detail in a later episode, which it ends up being less than 1 in 100 people. If you're just somebody that's been, you're weight conscious, or you're trying to, find the thing that jumpstarts positive habits, chances are the ketogenic diet is not what you need. Instead, we need to focus more on quality carbohydrates. I doubt anybody out there can cite a person that they know that ate oatmeal, sweet potatoes, and blueberries alongside vegetables and lean quality protein sources and nuts and seeds and avocados, and had issues with their weight or their blood sugar or other metabolic issues, right? Those are not the foods that deserve blame. Not to say that we should even really be blaming foods. We should be better understanding how they all integrate. And once again, my thought is, let's focus on quality of carbohydrate and making that the majority of what we eat, making that the day-to-day base, so to speak, and then allowing those refined carbohydrates, those sweet goods, those snack foods, those packaged things, allow those to be the occasional things that we allow into our diet as a part of our diet, right? I tend to call those lonely foods. You might have heard that on a previous podcast. They're foods that, because they are high in sugar and potentially low in fiber, they tend to make us hungrier, not less hungry. And so they're lonely, right? If we eat them by themselves, we eat too many of them. And so instead of eating them by themselves, we can incorporate them into a diet that includes very, very slow digesting, balanced foods that can, as a result, regulate us and make us feel our best. So here's to a positive year of health and wellness that starts to break down and break away from this anti-carb, carb-phobic mindset, and starts to instead recognize that there's no one thing that is the problem. There's no one blame that's impeding or affecting your ability to meet your personal health, fitness, or weight-based goals. The reality is it comes back to balance and moderation for most of us. And by balance, we mean a balanced diet that really does include upregulating good quality foods that nourish your body and make you feel your best. And then as a result, better portioning the things that we tend to utilize for convenience. And most importantly, not criminalizing foods that have a lot of immense value to our nutrition and our digestion and our well-being. This has been another CSN3M podcast. I'd like to thank you for listening. Please subscribe to our channel and share on your favorite social media. And please tag a friend, and don't forget to hashtag spread the health, as that is our goal here at Case Specific Nutrition, is to spread the health, one podcast and one consultation at a time. For more content, be sure to check us out on all of our social media. We are Case Specific Nutrition on Instagram and on Facebook, and Case Specific PGH on Twitter. And be sure to check it back in with us next week for our Mindset Monday with CSN3M. Thank you.